Disclaimer: this story is based on real events in Nigerian history. Certain dialogues and scenes have been dramatized for storytelling purposes.
Imagine you are about to be executed. 30,000 people are standing in front of you. Soldiers have rifles pointed directly at your chest. You have maybe 60 seconds left to live. What do you do? Do you cry? Do you beg? Do you pray? This man smiled. Not a nervous smile. Not a smile he was forcing to look brave. A real, wide, genuine smile. Like a man at a party. Like a man who was enjoying himself. And that is the moment Nigeria knew, this was not a normal human being. His name was Ishola Oyenusi. And in the 12 months before that smile, he had turned the most powerful city in Africa into a place where people were afraid to leave their houses. He was not a soldier. He was not a politician. He had no university degree, no connections, no family money. He had one thing. He simply did not fear death. And in 1971 Nigeria, that made him the most dangerous man alive. This is his story. And I'm warning you right now, once you hear it, you will not forget it. Part 1, The Boy Behind the Title. Every monster has a beginning. Oyenusi was not born dangerous. He was born ordinary, and that, perhaps, was the problem. He grew up in Lagos at a time when the gap between rich and poor was not just visible, it was loud. You could hear it in the cars that sped past you on the road. You could smell it in the food at parties you could never be invited to. He watched men in suits walk into buildings and come out with briefcases full of money, and somewhere deep inside him, a quiet anger began to harden into something else entirely. Ambition. But not the kind that sends a boy to school. The kind that sends him looking for shortcuts. He started small. Petty theft. Pickpocketing. The kind of crimes that get you slapped and sent home. But Oyenusi was watching, learning, calculating. He understood something early that most criminals don't: image is power. If people believed you were educated, untouchable, above them, they would fear you without you even having to raise a hand. So he gave himself a title. Doctor. No degree. No university. Just a word, and the confidence to make people believe it. And in the streets of Lagos, belief is everything. Part 2, Building the Gang. By the early 1970s, Oyenusi had graduated from petty crime to something far more dangerous. He built a gang. 6 men, handpicked, each one willing to kill, each one hungry enough not to ask too many questions. Together, they were not just criminals. They were organized. Strategic. Almost professional. Their method was simple and brutal. Pick a target, a factory, a bank, a private home, somewhere money moved in large amounts. Move in fast, move in loud, leave no witnesses who could cause problems. Oyenusi believed in overwhelming force. He didn't want a fight. He wanted surrender, immediate, total, and terrified. And he almost always got it. One of his gang members once said, "With Doctor, you don't negotiate. You just move." But what made Oyenusi truly different, truly terrifying, was not his planning. It was his face. While other criminals wore masks, literal and emotional, Oyenusi smiled. In the middle of a robbery, with guns drawn and people on the floor crying, Oyenusi would grin like a man at a party. Calm. Relaxed. Almost joyful. Victims described it later in court, their voices still shaking. It wasn't the gun that scared them most. It was the smile. Because a man who smiles while he terrorizes you is a man who feels nothing. And a man who feels nothing can do anything. Part 3, The Era of Crime. The robberies came fast, and came hard. Banks. Factories. Homes of wealthy businessmen. No target was too bold, no security too thick. If anything, the more dangerous the target, the more Oyenusi seemed to enjoy it. Lagos was changing. The streets that used to buzz with post-war optimism were now whispering with anxiety. Newspapers ran headlines almost weekly. The police were issuing warnings. Business owners were hiring private guards. And still, our doctor kept moving. People began to talk about him the way Lagos talks about everything, part fear, part fascination. Because Nigerians have always had a complicated relationship with boldness. Even when it is criminal. Even when it is deadly. There was something about this smiling ghost in the night that people couldn't look away from. He had become a celebrity. But celebrities, as we know, are always one mistake away from a scandal. His biggest job, the one that would seal his fate, came in 1971. The Waham factory in Ikeja. This was not a small target. This was a large, active industrial facility. The kind of place with multiple workers, multiple witnesses, and a paper trail that leads directly to the police. But Oyenusi saw the money, £28,000, and he decided that nothing was going to stop him. The gang hit the factory with their usual speed and violence. Workers were held at gunpoint. The safe was opened. The money changed hands. But this time, blood was spilled, heavily. Lives were taken. And in the Nigeria of 1971, that crossed a line that even the most corrupt system could not ignore. The city had had enough. Part 4, the net closes. You know the saying, every day for the thief, one day for the owner. Oyenusi had been dancing in borrowed time. The police, under immense public pressure and with the military government watching closely, launched a serious manhunt. And this is where Oyenusi's greatest weapon, his reputation, became his greatest weakness. Everyone knew the name doctor. Which meant everyone had something to say. Informants came forward. Associates talked. The gang, for all their loyalty in the field, were not built to survive the kind of pressure that was now descending on them. One by one, they were picked up. And then, Oyenusi himself. The arrest was not dramatic. No Hollywood standoff, no final shootout. He was found. He was taken. And just like that, the most feared man in Lagos was in handcuffs, being walked into a police station. Witnesses said he was still smiling. The trial was swift, as trials under military governance in 1970s Nigeria tended to be. The evidence was overwhelming. The victims testified. The money was accounted for. The bodies could not be undone. Oyenusi stood in the dock and did something no one expected. He didn't deny it. He didn't weep. He confessed, almost casually, as if unburdening himself of something that had already stopped mattering to him. He told the court he was no doctor. He was simply a man who loved the thrill of it. The danger, the power, the feeling of taking what the world had refused to give him. He said it without shame. He said it with that same, impossible smile. He was given the death sentence. Part 5, Bar Beach. September 8, 1971. Bar Beach, Lagos. The ocean behind them, the city in front. Thousands of Lagosians had come, some in horror, some in relief, some with their children on their shoulders. The government had made a decision that would echo through Nigerian history for decades to come. They would make this public. Oyenusi and 6 members of his gang were brought to the beach in military vehicles. Armed soldiers lined the perimeter. Cameras were rolling, because this execution was not just justice. It was a message. Broadcast live. This is what happens. The men were lined up. By all accounts, most of them were visibly shaken. Fear does that, even to the bold, even to the violent, even to those who have made others beg for their lives. The reality of a firing squad in front of thousands of watching eyes is something no amount of bravado can fully prepare you for. But then there was Oyenusi. He looked out at the crowd. He looked at the soldiers. He looked at the guns pointed at his chest. And he smiled. A soldier, reportedly, leaned in and asked if he had any last words. Oyenusi is said to have replied, "Tell them. Doctor is not afraid." The guns fired. Silence. And then the crowd. The smiling robber of Lagos was dead at Bar Beach, the same city he had terrorized, surrounded by the same people he had made afraid. It was over. And yet, somehow, it wasn't. Part 6, The Legacy. Here is the complicated truth about Ishola Oyenusi. The government executed him publicly to erase him, to make an example so frightening that no one would dare follow in his footsteps. It didn't quite work. Because instead of disappearing, Oyenusi became a legend. His name was passed around in whispers, in conversations, in the kind of oral history that Lagos tells itself at night. His story got bigger with every retelling. The smile grew wider. The crimes grew bolder. The man grew larger than life. Nigeria's armed robbery problem did not die at Bar Beach that day. If anything, the spectacle of a man dying with a grin on his face only deepened the mythology. What his story truly left behind is a question, one that Nigeria is still trying to answer 50 years later. What do you do with a society where desperation and ambition mix in the wrong proportions? Oyenusi was not the last. He was not the worst. But he was the first to make Lagos look in the mirror. And the mirror has never quite stopped staring back. That was Ishola Oyenusi. Dead at Bar Beach. 30,000 people watching. Smiling until the very end. Here is my question for the comments. We live in a time where killers get called Sigma males. Where the more dangerous a man is, the more people admire him. If Oyenusi were alive today with a phone and an Instagram page, would he have victims or followers? Drop your answer below.
If this story got you, subscribe. New story every week. Each one is worse than the last. You have been warned.